Hey everyone, it's another video where I complain about something everybody's already talked about. So if for whatever reason you care about today's topic, that being Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Blood Pressure and spoilers surrounding it, then you might want to skip out on this one. So there's your warning. I'm going to start off by saying I have limited knowledge regarding external media beyond the movies, so some of my complaints may actually have answers elsewhere. But I don't personally feel as if I should have to look beyond what's presented in an otherwise isolated series that follows chronological storytelling. Especially when they've made it a point to tell everyone that the majority of extended lore created prior to all of this is now defunct. This final movie does, however, continue the tradition of establishing internal logic just to then break their own rules. The people behind the sequel trilogy have made it perfectly clear now that it is just a series of responses to critical reception rather than having any particular vision or story they wanted to present to an audience. They are not so much concerned about making a standalone experience as they are making you remember the actually good movies, all for the sake of making money. Which I really don't even care about as long as it's done well. But in an attempt to cast as wide a net as possible, they've puppeted the corpse of a franchise and traded writing for scale and spectacle. The new trilogy is just a long series of indecisiveness in regards to its plot, pacing, character motivations, narrative, and the relevancy of countless other elements contributing to any of the aforementioned. Plot conveniences are one thing, because they can just be hand-waved away with, well, the Force willed it. It's another thing entirely when things happen, then are quickly resolved in such a way that it gives you whiplash. Worse yet, when it happens a lot. Chewie's dead. No, he's not. C-3PO's memories are gone. No, they're not. Oh, Hux is the traitor. Oh, yeah, he's dead. Rey killed Kylo. No, she didn't. We need a nav key. Oh, it's busted. Wait, there's another. The Resistance is losing. No, wait, Lando brought backup. Nope, still losing. Nope. We're good. Ben's dead again. No, he's not. Rey's dead. No, she's not. Wait, Ben is dead for real this time. Rey's parents matter again. Just kidding. No, they don't. It's actually her grandfather this time. Which actually does mean her parents matter, but, fuck them. Yep, right out of the gate, Rey's true origins are a point of interest again. It's immediately dangled in front of us by Palpatine, and you can pretty quickly guess that she's related to him based on the fact that they put a lot of focus on how she doesn't have a last name, seeing how she can shoot lightning out of her hands, and you remember that it's already been established that strong Force users are actually a product of eugenics. Rey having a dark, perhaps even cursed ancestry alongside Kylo Ren is a novel idea. One that probably could have been better explored were it not for the fact it was haphazardly shoved into the final film. Anyway, this all eventually leads to Rey deciding to pave her own path unshackled by her roots, which is an incredibly ironic message given the direction Star Wars has taken. But hey, all the new powers were cool. I especially liked the telepathic fight where objects were getting teleported all over the place. Except for maybe one unintentional instance. Near the end of the film, Ben Solo teleports, but not in a way you would expect, and it bothered the shit out of me. After making peace with his memory of Han, he just sort of appears on Exegol. I know they showed a grounded TIE fighter, which he presumably flew on, but how did he gain access to it? He was stranded on floating debris with Finn and Janna, a new character, after Rey stole his ship. So first off, that means they just ignored him, okay, sure. But it also means that he somehow got a TIE fighter from the First Order, even though at this point he was most likely blacklisted, considering General Pryde was now taking direct orders from Palpatine. This is further supported by the fact that the moment Ben shows up on Exegol, the Knights of Ren, his former students, immediately try to kill him. Speaking of which, the Knights of Ren didn't really have anything to add in this film. It seems like they were just sort of thrown in, only being included because people kept asking about it. Here's your answer. They exist to die. Another bit that was likely inserted in response to people's complaints, yet wasn't present in the previous film. With the way they sort of just show up and do nothing, it really feels like the studio is going, hey look, they're here, see? We remembered. We listened to you guys. This is something that happens a lot to varying degrees, but we'll touch more on that later. Speaking of things abruptly showing up though, Force ghosts continue to baffle me. It's fine when they only act as an exposition dump, but when you continue to show them capable of interacting with the corporeal realm, it opens up a lot of questions. If they can summon lightning, catch objects, lift heavy machinery, and appear anywhere in the universe, what is stopping them from assisting in other scenarios? I'm assuming the qualifier is that they can only appear to such a degree in times of dire need or mental uncertainty. But then there's a lot of cases that fit that description. People have died in the absence of their guidance, and sometimes even as a direct result of it. Do Force ghosts just have a proclivity towards making people do shit that kills them? Like, what's up with that? When you die, do you immediately become an asshole in this universe? Oh, on the topic of people dying and returning unprompted as giant assholes, though. Palpatine. Palpatine was weird. I thought the nods to his lines in the previous movies was pretty cute, but as a whole, him being reintroduced as the primary antagonist was executed pretty sloppily. Palpatine's plan was to have Rey, his granddaughter, kill him so that he and all other Sith throughout history can continue inhabiting her body. This idea is scrapped once he realizes he can just heal himself with Rey and Ben's uniquely abusive relationship, one that apparently hasn't existed to such an intensity for thousands of years. So while these two are barely clinging on to life after he has sucked them dry, he figures the best course of action is to not immediately execute the two people who are the greatest threats to his claim to power. Yeah, go figure, I guess being a drama queen still takes precedence when you're a Sith. Because instead he decides to throw Ben into a big hole in the ground like Darth Vader did to him back in the day. You know, despite the fact that he survived this same thing in a giant death construct that exploded in space. You would think such an incident among presumably many in his lengthy life would make him intimately familiar with the cockroach-like constitution of powerful Force users. But no, he then goes and just lets Rey recuperate for some reason. To top it all off, the dude makes a grand show of force, zapping countless enemy ships with his angry lightning, which arcs off into a million apparently controlled directions, yet can't make two streams hit the people closest to him. Then when he dies, and Rey dies immediately after, yet doesn't become one with the Force, leaving just her clothes behind, despite accomplishing everything she sought to do and channeling the power of every single Jedi in existence, you know, some anime shit, I thought, oh shit, he's about to enter her body like he said he was going to. Nope, she's just dead, apparently having used up all her remaining life force running at the Emperor with 2 lightsabers and making the dumbass zap himself a 3rd time. Sorry, my mistake. He didn't just zap himself. He also zapped and killed what appeared to be every other Sith or Sith cultist gathered in a large arena watching all of this unfold. They could have intervened at any point and killed Rey for him, but didn't. For some reason. Maybe they weren't real. Maybe Rey needed to strike Palpatine down in anger even though she still killed him in probably the most violent way possible. Who knows? It's not clear. Stop showing me shit in an attempt to establish something you think might be cool or interesting just to do nothing with it. It's getting real old. Anyway, Ben climbs out of the hole, apparently unaffected by the mass AoE Thundaja explosion which killed everybody in the surrounding area including the attacker, sees Rey dead, and transfers some of his life energy to her. Which kills him. It bothers me that Ben's character arc is completed with his death in a way that feels a bit gratuitous. He transfers enough life force to kill himself when just moments before you saw Rey perform what is perhaps the greatest feat of any canon Jedi, yet persists as a corpse. And moments before that, Palpatine is shown sucking the life force out of both of them and leaves just a bit, although he likely had every intention of killing them. How can you show me these events in such an order, yet also expect me to accept this as an outcome? It all happens so abruptly, and Ben doesn't even appear as a ghost at the end, so it lacks any sort of impact. Was there a reason he couldn't seclude himself in repentance for his actions like Luke did and how Rey wanted to as a more appropriate thematic ending? Is the message that he did way too much fucked up shit to ever be redeemed, even though he was already making steps towards that? So you would rather have him die than live with a guilty conscience his entire life and take a hand in fixing the problems that he created for the entire galaxy. You'd rather just have him straight up fucking die. Okay, I got it. So fucking weird, but that's not even the worst of it. I understand working around and retooling Carrie Fisher's parts to better serve other purposes, but her entire role in this segment was just insulting. They mentioned Leia having a vision of Ben turning to the dark side, which is likely why she didn't completely pass until he saves Rey and is truly redeemed. But that begs the question, what took her so long? Ben already abandoned the dark side. He came to Rey's aid and even brought her back to life, yet it was only dying and becoming one with the Force that allowed Leia to do the same. So she was waiting for her son to also die? Did she know that was going to happen? That's fucking creepy. What the fuck are you trying to convey here? This really only reinforces my thought that the dead in this series just push you towards doing dumb shit and dying, if anything. But at least Ben sort of gets a conclusion. I really dislike how many hanging plot threads there are by the end. Finn and Rose were absolutely wasted as characters, with Rose getting the worst of it, her relevancy being reduced to nothing because people didn't like her. She pokes her head in and out, but she's about as relevant as the Knights of Ren, only in this case I figured they realized it would send a bad message if they just erased her entirely. But when it comes to Finn, it feels like he had to share his screen time with someone else to be relevant. Throughout the movie, Finn keeps saying that he has to tell Rey something, and we don't ever really get an answer to that, so it just kinda goes nowhere. Jannah, the new character, mentions that she and her group are all former stormtroopers that defected, just like Finn. She also mentions she doesn't know where she came from or who her family are, something that Rey also struggled with, and eventually got an answer to, leading to personal growth. Yet Finn, who has an identical background to Jannah, and should have the same struggles with his identity, never brings this up as a source of personal conflict throughout all 3 movies. You'd think this would be implemented in a way which would allow Finn or Jannah to better empathize with Rey's identity crisis, but she just shirks Finn off, saying no one gets her. Except Ben, I guess, because she gives him a big ol' samooch right after she returns from being a lifeless corpse, and right before he turns into a big ol' pile of clothes. Then at the very end, they leave us with the threat of Jannah potentially going off with Lando to find out who her parents were. And Finn's just there, and then nothing. There was such a noticeable sense of urgency to close things out, permeated throughout the entire movie. And yet there was still apparently a need to add more fluff, pointless characters, and storylines that could have even been given to someone on the main cast. Good shit! I know it sounds like I have a lot of problems with this movie, but truthfully, most of my points are just nitpicking, and I'm perfectly okay with admitting that. This movie is nowhere near as bad as The Last Jedi, and also suffers from having to follow it. I think they did as well as they could with what they had to work off of. Many, if not most, of my problems with Episode 9 are only an extension of the problems I have with the sequel trilogy as a whole. I enjoyed the callbacks to previous films, the voices of generations prior, the gang was all there. Adam Driver is a great actor, and his character was probably the most compelling part of the series. But that's what makes things all the more heartbreaking. You catch a glimpse of things that were and what could have been. Nothing really makes any sense or is significant in this trilogy without relying heavily on something or someone from the original trilogy, which causes every moment to lose impact. And I'm just sort of emotionally drained from having to sit through all these movies. When I went to watch Episode 8, I came in optimistic and excited for the future of the franchise, only to leave disappointed beyond belief. But with this, I came in expecting nothing, and left feeling nothing. This whole ordeal was such a mess, but at least now it's finally done and over with. And after so long, there's finally room to grow again, unburned by the past. Not really, the well is poison, we just have to live with it now. Still, I hope whatever they decide to do next with the franchise, that it at least won't be Episode 10. Side stories, prequels, sure, fine. Just let this story be done with. Set the next installment far, far away enough in terms of time or distance so that it is completely disconnected. I'm gonna give Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, 2 sniffs out of 5. I want to start off by saying I have limited... Oh, that was a wet one. Oh, what was that? That's going to sound beautiful.